In this section, let's go over two-dimensional lists. This is a super powerful tool to store and access data. You can think of it as a list of lists. In other programming languages, lists could be called arrays. This is basically an array of an array. We'll go over basic two-dimensional lists by creating a grid of numbers. So let's start off by just calling up a list. We'll define the list as A, right? And notice we call it by making two brackets. But then inside of these open and closed brackets, we're going to call up another list. And we'll put in this list numbers 1, 2, and 3. All right? And then we can think of it as another row. We'll put on the second row 4, 5, and 6. And on the last row, we'll put in 7, 8, and 9. So now we have a 3x3 list. So this is basically a list of lists, right? So say we want to access a particular item in this list. So all we'd have to do is say print, and then A, we'll call up this matrix A, and say we want to access the grid coordinate 1 and then 2. And as you can see, we don't have any errors. So let's go ahead and pull up the console first and foremost and run the program. And we'll do that by clicking run. And then I have other programs up, but we'll go ahead and click 2D list. And right here, you see it prints 6. So let's take a look at what exactly happened behind the scenes to call up 1, 2. You can think of the 2D list as an XY chart originating at coordinates 0, 0. So when you put in the numbers 1 and 2, they correlate with you basically saying you want to look at row 1, column 2. And that gets you the number 6, which is on this keypad that we made here. So now let's integrate user inputs into the console area into grabbing lists information. So now let's integrate user input through the console area. All right, so first things first, we need to put in an input. We want to store, let's say, store these variables or this information in variables. Let's call these variables, let's see, x and x and y. So we'll put input, enter coordinate 1, and then we'll put input coordinate 2. All right. And let's make these x and y to correspond with the two variables. Now, I just want you guys to think about what's going to happen if we put x and y as these inputs. And notice that, right now, PyCharm is not throwing up any errors. in the code according to PyCharm. This is a completely valid code piece of code, but it's just think about it for a second. And if you'll notice, some of the more experienced programmers will probably notice that it's wrong, because it's going to input, when the user inputs a number, it's going to input into these variable strings, and it's going to put in these indexes a string, and it's not going to interpret it correctly. It needs to be an integer. So let's go ahead and convert these strings into integers. And it's also valid. So let's run this one more time. So right here in the console here is telling me enter one coordinate, and we'll do 1 and 2 again. Should pop up to be 6. Now we can do this, again, and think about, let's do the number 8. So it's in the third row down, or third matrix, or sorry, list down, and then the second column over. So think about it for a second, what that's going to look like. What coordinates do we need to input to get 8 out? So think about it. It is the second list down, and then 1 over 1 over, so 0 and 1. So we need to put down 2 and 1 to get the number 8. So let's run this again. So let's put in the number 2 to get to the second list, and then the 1 to get to the second column, or the first column after the 0th column, and then you get the number 8. And that's it for this video. In the next module, later on in the module, we'll use techniques to print out the context of entire lists using conditional statements. We'll also use those conditional statements to create entire lists.